Hi! Thanks for joining me on another Strikkechick Podcast episode today. My name is Samantha and I am a knitter and knitwear designer living in the Arctic Circle of Norway in a city called Tromsø. So you'll notice that it's a bit I've got some candles going, it's a bit dusky and cozy, but it's actually around 1 p.m. and that's because we have something called mørketid, or the dark time, up here in the Arctic Circle, where as it starts to get closer to December, we don't get any sunlight at all. And as a podcaster, obviously that isn't ideal. But I hope that you can see everything I'm going to show you guys today, and that the kind of little cozy candles and mood lighting isn't turning you off of sticking around to see some of my recent finished objects and some of my works in progress. And I actually don't have any new acquisitions for you this time because I have been quite good on controlling my yarn shopping. I think I did a lot of going out there and buying a ton of sweaters quantities worth of yarn these past few months, and so now I've kind of resolved to take care of what is in my stash before I buy tons and tons of new yarn, even though I have been wanting to. So without further ado, let's just dive right into it and check out some of my knitting projects. So the first thing that I want to talk to you about, as always, is what I'm wearing. This is, I'm just going to pop it up so you can get a good look at the color detailing on the bottom here. This is the Bobleglede, or Bubble Joy sweater by Rune Strik, who is a Norwegian knitwear designer. She is a student, I believe, and she lives in Oslo. And she came up with this design, I think it was maybe around 2 years back, and it was a hit in Norway. A lot of different knitters have cast it off their needles. It's very it's drops air double-stranded, so it's very chunky, very kind of warm and cozy and soft, and perfect for Norwegian winters. And it's in this kind of very fun to knit bubble stitch, which is where you like drop a bunch of stitches and you grab, there's a couple tutorials on YouTube to show you how to do it, but it's a very fun, very puffy kind of textured pattern, and it is great for using up those kind of pesky leftover 1 or 2 skeins of yarn in your stash. The original pattern was written in Norwegian, but I do believe that she has an English version as well, and maybe a Danish. So I'll just link to the English pattern down below in the description notes, and you can check that out and knit a Bobleglede if you feel like making one for yourself. So we're going to talk about some of my recently finished objects, and I feel like I don't actually have that many to show you guys this week. I feel like I am a fairly prolific knitter. I do get a lot of projects on the needles and off the needles because I mean, knitting is one of the things that I spend most of my free time on. But recently work has been a bit hectic, and I have just kind of wanted to shut off my brain and relax in my downtime. And 2, I have been designing a lot of patterns that have recently been cast off. So the logical next step as a knitwear designer is then you write the pattern out, you grade the pattern, you write a call for testers, and that's what I've been doing for 2 of my most recent designs. So that hasn't really left me with as much time as I typically have to actually knit. But I do have a couple finished objects to show you. The first one is this sweater that, if I can unfurl it, you can definitely get a better look at it. That you probably remember from my last podcast episode. So, I really hope this is picking up okay. It's a bit dark. I mean, it is just a bit dark. That's characteristic of mørketid. But this is my variegated mohair sweater. It is knit in one strand of Drops Nepal in the shade Off-White and one strand of Unique Garn Kid Silk in the shade Eastdance or Ice Dance. Unique Garn is a Norwegian yarn company. They do hand-dyed yarns and they have the prettiest hanks of variegated mohair and merino and silk, and it's just lovely. So I wanted to treat myself and I bought 2 skeins of the silk mohair. And I wanted to show off the colors in the silk mohair, and I knew I had enough for a sweater's quantity, but then I also kind of wanted it to be just a little bit more kind of an everyday wearable piece. So I held it together with a solid base yarn that is the same color as the white strands in the soft silk mohair. And it has flecks of blue and purple. And just in case this isn't picking up perfectly, I will stick a photo in better sunlight because we got an hour of that today in the corner so that you can see what this looks like in the daylight. But it's just so fun to knit. I haven't actually given it a name yet because this just flew off my needles a couple days ago, and it's still kind of, I've been thinking about what I want to call it, but I promise you by the time tester call goes out for this, I will have a name. It has this kind of, it's like a zigzaggy pattern that you create by slipping a bunch of stitches and then picking up the little threads of yarn that are left in the front of your work from when you slip the stitches. And I think it's fairly cool how they have worked into the raglan over here, because it is knit from the top down, and I've done some short row shaping in the back so that you have a really nice comfortable neckline fit, and then everything kind of increases out from the raglans. And I think it's done in a way that it doesn't really disrupt the textural pattern, which is quite nice, because I was a little afraid of kind of putting a pattern like this with raglans, just because sometimes it looks a little bit messy and a little bit kind of, it doesn't quite fit well. But this knit up so fast, actually. I used 6mm needles and I could finish one sleeve in 2 days, which I did. And I'm really, like, my dream for this sweater, I don't know if I've talked to you about it before, but what I absolutely want to do is wear this sweater on a beautiful frozen lake that's about a 2-hour drive away from where we live in the Lingen Alps, which is a just extremely beautiful area up in northern Norway. And you have this kind of very vibrant blue lake because of the silt that flows down from the glacier above. And when it freezes, it looks amazing. And you can ice skate on it. And I used to figure skate when I was younger. So I have this vision in my head of figure skating on that lake in this sweater. So we'll see if that ends up happening this winter. But very much happy with how this turned out, and there will be a tester call soon. So if you like it, keep your eyes peeled and you could potentially make one of these for yourself if you want. My next finished object is my first gift knit of the season. So I think it was about a year ago, I saw that somebody on Reddit, in a subreddit called Knitting, had posted a picture of a very large stuffed animal that was just absolutely adorable that they had made for their boyfriend. And they linked this book. Let's see if I can grab it and not get burned with a candle. They had linked this book, which is called Robin Octopus and Friends by Claire Gelder. And they had made, I think it was the Highland cow from here. And so I fell in love with it and I bought the book. And I had this idea of making stuffed animals for my little niece and nephew, and I finally got around to making them, and I will mail them off to Copenhagen for them later this year. So for her, I made the unicorn, which is her favorite animal, And oh my gosh, you guys, how cute is this? Oh man. So his name is Charlie the Unicorn in the book, but I have named her Lulu or Lula because my niece calls unicorns Lulicorns, which is adorable. So the book calls for Claire Gelder's own line of yarn, which is called Wool Couture. It's a 100%, I think it's a single ply, but a very thick wool. And I just want to keep this unicorn in the frame while I'm talking. It's a single ply kind of thick wool, but instead of wool, because I know that can get kind of difficult to clean, and neither of her parents are knitters, so I wouldn't want to hoist that responsibility on them. I used Hobby Amigo Chunky acrylic, which is also meant for 7mm needles, which is what the book suggests. So I didn't check gauge or anything because it is a stuffy, so if it ends up a bit larger or smaller than what it was meant to be, that's totally fine. But yeah, I am so happy with the way this little lady turned out. And the hair, oh my god. Like, look at this. It's so cute. It's like, oh man, the tail loopies and everything about it. I hope she loves it because I think it's absolutely adorable. And I really enjoyed making it. I think for me, the hardest part of making this is sewing up stuffies is a bit difficult. And this horn is blocking my face, isn't it? Sewing up stuffies is a bit hard for me because it's kind of, I feel like I'm not generally the best at placing things where they need to be, and I'm very perfectionist about it. So kind of, if a leg is a bit off kilter, I'm like, oh wait, that's not right. And then I have to go back and redo the entire thing, and I have to make sure everything is stuffed just so, and it really kind of, as a bit of a perfectionist, it can get to me. But I think, I mean, it is, because I'm actually sewing up my nephew's stuffy right now that I'll show you later. But as I keep doing it, it's getting easier and easier. So I guess this is one of those learning curves that kind of, I've knit a lot of garments, but I haven't knit stuffies. And so it's just something that I have to get used to, and then I will feel much better about it. But I think I used a couple modifications, like I put some white in the eyes. I don't know if you can see that. Ooh. Yeah. But yeah, she's just so cute and cuddly and happy, and I think she's actually the same size as, I mean, I'm sure my niece has grown since I've last seen her, but she's the same size that she was when I last saw her. So I just imagine her having a big unicorn stuffy friend, and something that was made by me. And I don't know, I hope she loves it. Moving on to works in progress, my second stuffy, the one that I'm making for my nephew, is going to be this Highland cow, which is, oh, it's so adorable. This is the one that I fell in love with, the stuffy that I saw on Reddit, and I just kind of, I figured if I'm making something for her, I have to make something for him too. There's no glare. And he is younger than she is. He's, I think, he's almost 2 now. He's a year and a half. And so he's not at that point where he has a favorite animal or anything yet. But I thought a Highland cow would be really cute because he has really curly hair, just like a Highland cow. And so it's like, oh, it's like a cute little connection. And I actually have finished knitting all the pieces, but I don't want to show you because I have them very nicely laid out on a table. And maybe I'll take a picture of that and I'll put it in the little boxy thing above. But what I do have to show you is the first little piece of the body. This is the body actually that I've stuffed up already. And it's like, look at these little loopies. This is what makes the fuzz on the Highland cow. And I just think it is this is the head part because it has a little opening to sew on the head. So I don't know, it's just, I hope his little fingers don't get caught in it or anything. It's not like anything can happen. It's not like he can pull them out. And like it is still, it's the same Hobby Amigo chunky as the unicorn. So it's not kind of like he won't pull out a bunch of fibers or anything. This is pretty non-sheddy. And I think it's a really, really cute way of making the fuzzy Highland cow kind of texture. So I had a lot of fun knitting up these little loop stitches. And I am so excited to join it all together and show you how it looks. I was actually planning on making a little reel today, where I kind of like, you take pictures of kind of every step that you fill in with toy stuffing and then sewing it together, and kind of like the process of putting together a stuffy, because I think that would have been really cool to have and to show. But unfortunately, this little unicorn over here used so much stuffing that I have clear run out. And so I need to buy more stuffing before I can move on and finish the Highland cow. And as soon as that's done, I will take photos with both the unicorn and the Highland cow, write up a couple Christmas cards, and send them on to Copenhagen. So I'm very, very excited to see the kids' reactions when they get their stuffies. Oh, yeah. I don't know. I bought them Christmas presents last year because I went down to visit, but this year I think it's a bit kind of, yeah, I just figured I'd mail them instead. But yeah, I hope they love them. My next work in progress is something that you haven't seen in a while, I think. It is, if I can extricate it from all of this goodness over here, it is this big, chunky mohair cardigan that just fell on the floor that I have been working on for quite a while now. So I think I showed you guys the start of this cardigan, and actually it was pretty close to where it is now in my second ever podcast that I filmed during the summer this year. And it hasn't grown much since, because when I cast this on, I had this idea of wearing it on chilly nights at the beach. Just kind of the sun sets, and well, the sun doesn't actually set in the summer in Tromsø because we have mørketid, the dark time, and then in the summer we have midnight sun, so the sun never sets in the summer. But golden hour around midnight, where the sun is kind of, it dips close to the horizon, but it doesn't quite set. I had kind of an image of wearing it at a time like that on one of the nice Arctic beaches around here, and just having like a nice flowy duster mohair cardigan to pop on over whatever summer dress or swimsuit or whatever that I was wearing at the beach that day. However, once fall started to set in and summer started to kind of phase out around the end of July, then I lost my motivation for working on this. But recently I have been feeling like a knitting project that doesn't require so much thought to it. So then I picked this up again, because now all I'm doing is knitting back and forth in Strikkechick until the duster cardigan reaches almost my knees, and then I'll start doing the ribbing, and then I can just pick up for a button band around the outside and finish off with that. So I've kind of got my motivation back to work on this. And also I recently posted a reel on Instagram with all of my works in progress, and this cardigan actually got a fair bit of attention. So I think that was a little bit kind of positive encouragement for me to be like, okay, people like this design, let's finish it and let's do it and let's wear it and feel warm and comfy and nice. And it will definitely be ready for next summer when I can wear it on the beach during midnight sun and have my nice cozy cardigan vibes that I kind of imagined when I first cast this on. It is knit with, I've got to pick up the yarn. It is knit with Lina Langmo Påfugel, eller Lina Langmo Påfugel, or meek påfugel, which means soft peacock in Norwegian. It is a Norwegian yarn. It's from a Norwegian company called Dalegarn. Let's see if I can show you. This is the off-white. And it's this, I think I showed you this strand during my first podcast too. It's very thick wool core. Instead of having a silk core, it's a core of merino wool, and you've got mohair around it. And it kind of, I think, if you were looking for a yarn alternative to knit this, if you don't live in Norway and you want to knit this cardigan, I think a lot of chunky mohairs can serve as a good substitute, like Wool in the Gang Take Care mohair, for example, or Hip Knit Shop is also Norwegian, but I know that they ship to the rest of Europe no problem, and they have a thick mohair yarn that I think would be a good substitute for this. And it's a very, very quick knit, actually. I should be done with it fairly soon, assuming that I keep my diligence on it and actually knit it from time to time. But it's on 9mm needles, so it does work up really quickly. I think I did the sleeves, probably both of them in one day, just because I did them on 9mm circulars, short circulars, and so it was kind of just knitting in the round the whole way through. And it's also a really nice way to use up if you have any thick mohair leftovers. The sleeve cuffs are a great way to use them because I just wanted a bit of a pop of color. And so I used a couple of nice little contrasting colors there. And I put a cable, let me see if I can show you. I put a cable down the sleeve of both the sleeves that just kind of goes into the colors as well. So just a nice little detail on an otherwise very, very simple, very versatile duster cardigan. And I haven't named this yet either, but that also will be coming soon when I write up the pattern and put out a tester call for this, which should be fairly soon in the new year is what I have on my little knitting schedule plan. So yes, if you want a duster cardigan, this pattern is coming soon. My next work in progress is something that I did show you guys in the last video, but it has grown significantly since. It is extricating these projects is really hard, you guys. This is my Lillehammer 94 sweater. This is the body of it. It curls a lot, but I am currently working on the body, and oh my gosh, this color work. It's just, let me just take a minute to appreciate how complex this is without losing any stitches off the needles. So this is Cardigan, the same company I was telling you guys about that makes that thick mohair yarn. They release a pattern for Olympic sweaters, I think for every Winter Olympics, if I'm not mistaken. They definitely did for the Lillehammer 94 Olympics, which is what this sweater is for. It's the official sweater of the Lillehammer 94 Winter Olympics. And it is very, very intricate. Let's see if I can show you. So there's like these little sections, little panels that have different patterns on them, like so. And it's a very involved knit. It's not a Netflix knit. I have tried, I made mistakes, I frogged. I felt bad. So I have learned my lesson, and I do not knit this while watching Netflix because it's definitely something that you have to keep looking at the chart as you knit. And also these stitches are precariously close to falling off the needle, so let's just do this. It is knit in, I use their recommended yarn, what they knit the samples in, which is Cardigan Natural Lanolin Wool, which is a 100% new Norwegian wool, merino, I believe. And it's so lovely to knit with. It creates the nicest kind of, it stitches that very easily knit off the needle, very nice color work definition. These float, I'm actually very proud of myself because like, look at these floats. I feel like I've done a good job. And I'm not a very prolific color work knitter. So I haven't done a lot of big color work projects in the past, and I am very surprisingly pleased with myself and how this is going. I think I'm almost at the point where, so in the initial pattern, they have you steek. So for those of you who don't know what that is, which I'm assuming is not many of you, but anyway, you knit the whole sweater as a tube, right? And then you cut into your knitting for the armholes. And I have never steeked in my life, and I don't think that after putting this much effort into a sweater, I want to try and steek for the first time on this. And I really don't have the patience to do it with a swatch either. So what I did was I went back and I kind of calculated how wide the circumference of a sleeve would be based on the stitch count and based on my gauge. And I looked at the chart and I figured, okay, I need a little bit more length than what half that circumference will be. So I just took that and I figured, all right, this is my cutoff row where I start knitting back and forth for where the armholes are. So that's what I'm doing. I have pointed that out on my chart and I have almost reached it. I think this initial sweater is supposed to be 63 centimeters long for my size, which is the smallest size on the pattern. But 63 centimeters is a very long sweater for me. And I don't want a sweater that goes over my hips because I don't like the way that fits. I don't like how that restricts your movement, especially when it's a bit tighter. So like this is going to give me about 10 to 15 centimeters of positive ease at my bust. And it would be just a little bit too tight on my hips, I think, for comfort. So I decided to just shorten the sweater. And so it's going to be around 50 or 55 for me instead of 63. So I just did that by doing less repeats of the body pattern over here before it gets into the triangles. And that seems to work quite well. And also because I'm an impatient knitter, it saves me time. It saves me yarn, so it's perfect. Oh wow, did you hear that? That's a ship's horn. The ship is honking. We have big cruise ships that go through the fjord every day, and that was one of them. So thank you for interrupting my podcast. But yeah, I knit these just a little bit shorter, and that seems to have done the trick for me. So I'm quite happy with my little modifications, and I will definitely have updates on how knitting back and forth for the front and the back piece after the armholes goes for you, for anyone else who wants to try knitting this sweater but does not enjoy steeking like myself. My next work in progress that I have been chugging along with is my inner skirt from Knits from Oslo, which is a very pretty cable wrap skirt that I kind of, at this point I've memorized the pattern and there's no more increases. So she has you do these increases in seed stitch so that when the skirt is fitting over your hips, it's a bit kind of an easier shape. And I finished with them, so now it's just knitting back and forth in the established cable pattern until the skirt is long enough. So I have decided the skirt is meant to be knit in one strand of knitting for olive, heavy merino, and one strand of soft silk mohair. But I chose to do it in one strand of drops soft tweed and one strand of Viking yarn kid silk. So the reason for that is I used drops tweed before on my Soldog sweater, and I have noticed that it doesn't pill. And I think that's quite nice for a garment like a skirt that'll be rubbing up against a lot of things. And this mohair just matched this tweed the best, so I decided to go with that. And it's actually proved to be quite a soft, lovely combination that gives great cable definition, I think. I think this looks really nice in this yarn combo. But I think I'm halfway there, because I do remember, I think the last time I showed you guys this skirt, it looked kind of about the same, but I promise it has grown. It has gone, I think, 5 centimeters longer now. And so when I get to 51 centimeters, then I will start doing the ribbing for the bottom and I'm at about 23 now. So we are getting there. We're close. And one of the things that's this is one of my forever projects, is what I keep saying, because I want to have it ready for fall next year to wear with a black turtleneck and cute booties. I think that would look really nice. But I won't get much wear out of it in the winter in Tromsø because everything is cold, everything is icy. It's not really the best weather for a skirt, even a wool skirt. So yes, I will not be wearing this immediately, but it will be nice to have off the needles and blocked and ready to go by the time fall rolls around, and then I can feel, even the summer, honestly, in Tromsø, sometimes in the summer it can be as low as 3, 4, 5 degrees Celsius, which is pretty close to freezing actually. So it's good for that too, but I just want it ready when the winter is over. So that is my goal for this skirt, is to have it ready for then. My very last finished object for you guys is my white version of the Bonnieux cardigan, which is a pattern by me that I designed inspired by poppies in the Bonnieux Valley in France, which is in the Provence region. And that's it's a mix of things. It was the color of my initial sample, which was this really bright poppy red, and I'll pop a photo of it up there. And also because I used a really pretty French yarn from La Droguerie to make my first sample. And I chose a vintage lace floret pattern from an old knitting book that had motifs that were regionally specific. And that one was from France. So a combination of those things just made me gravitate towards Bonnieux. And I am making a white version currently out of Drop Sky, which is a very soft kind of blow yarn. It's an alpaca wool blend. And I'm hoping to have this ready to wear to my office's julebord, or Christmas party, which will be happening at the beginning of December. Because it's so people don't typically dress up here, but for Christmas they will go all out. They will dress to the nines. And I have this really nice maxi dress that I have been saving for the occasion, that I bought when I was still in college for one of my formals, that I have brought up here. And I think it would be a bit too cold in the building to just wear that dress, so I am making a cardigan that I can wear over it, but that still looks nice and classy and fancy enough to wear to a dressy Christmas party. So that's my self-imposed deadline for this, which is doesn't bode well, you guys, because it's almost the middle of November now, and I need this ready for the beginning of December. So I will probably be doing some marathon knitting on this. Am I almost done with the yoke? I think I've done 3 repeats of the yoke now, so I have 2 more to go for my size. And then I have the body and the sleeves, which hopefully should go by a lot faster because there's no increases on it. And I think that's the really time-consuming bit, is you do have these raglan increases on the yoke. And it takes a lot of time because you knit them in different ways on different rounds, and that's to keep with the floret pattern, because a lot of thought went into this pattern, just because it's so complicated to keep this motif going. But I am definitely hoping to have that done. I think I might do a skinnier version of the sleeves, just because I don't want them dipping in the food and such at the julebord. There is still a lot of food, and a lot of gravy, I think. So I might do a narrower sleeve option here, just to save the sweater or cardigan. But that is the plan, is to have it ready for the Christmas party. So I will give you an update on how that goes. Bringing back the unicorn for an extra special guest appearance at the end. I hope you enjoyed my knitting podcast today and hearing about some of my finished objects and my works in progress at the moment. I would love to know your thoughts on any of the objects that I've presented today. I would love to know what is on your needles, so please do leave me a comment and let me know. I love chatty comments where we can get a conversation going between two of us who just love knitting so much. And if you want to come over and say hi, I am over on Instagram and Ravelry and TikTok as the Strikkechick. And you can also find me on my own website, thestrikkechick.com. Until next time, you guys, happy knitting. Bye.